This video will be breaking down the best melee weapons available to you in LIMGRAVE as soon as you start the game and where to get them. Before we begin, I want to say that any weapon is viable in Elden Ring, especially at the beginning, provided it aligns with your stat distribution. Some weapons are just better than others due to a variety of factors, such as extra damage in the form of status effects like bleeds, or poise damage, which makes it easier to stagger foes, which interrupts attacks or opens them up for critical strikes. Other things such as damage type and how weapons are used also comes into play. Strike damage is better against armored enemies, and thrusting attacks from spears and rapiers can be used while blocking with a shield. With that being said, let's get into the best melee weapons available as soon as you start the game. These aren't necessarily in any particular order for everyone, it's just how I would rank them with my build and playstyle. Use what you prefer and what aligns with your build the most. Coming in at number 1, we have the Pickaxe. This great hammer is probably the most effective killing machine I've found for the start of the game. It's slow, but it packs a huge punch. Jumping heavy attacks go straight through most shields, and light attacks will stun everything smaller than a troll. Once you get a hold of something with this weapon, they're toast. The Pickaxe requires 22 strength and 10 dexterity to wield, but to hold it with both hands you only need about 15 or 16 strength. It drops from miners inside the LIMGRAVE tunnels just south of the Gatefront ruins. Number 2 is the Flail. This weapon type does strike damage and bleeds enemies, so it's very effective at staggering, getting through shields, and chunking down big health bars with blood loss. I'm absolutely loving this power stance flails in my newest playthrough. The first flail you can get is found in the back of the wagon further from the Gatefront ruins. It requires 10 strength and 18 dex. Another flail, called the chain link flail, can be dropped by pumpkin heads that are using the weapon. There's a pumpkin head at Fort Height. If you want to farm it, just make sure you don't complete Kenneth Height's dialogue after killing the knight at the fort, because that will complete a quest and stop all the enemies from spawning there. The chain link flail requires 18 strength and 12 dex. Number 3 is the Uchigatana. Katanas are extremely good in Elden Ring, and I'd be crazy not to include it here. This weapon is light, quick, and it does bleed damage. It got me through the majority of my first playthrough. It is the starting weapon for the Samurai class, and it can be found in the Death-Touched Catacombs and the Stormhill region of LIMGRAVE if you don't already have it, or if you want to dual wield it as a samurai. Uchi requires 11 strength and 15 dex to wield. Our first honorable mention is the great Epee, or Epee as some may call it, myself included. This is a heavy thrusting sword, and it can be used while blocking by attacking while behind a shield, making this a good defensive weapon. It also has a decent amount of staggering power when using heavy jumping or charged heavy attacks, and it seems to have slightly less reach than a spear, which can be used in the same way, but it hits just a little bit harder as well. You can find this weapon by heading east of the Agheel Lake south side of Grace, where it will be in a chest guarded by a group of enemies including 2 sorcerer nobles and a Kaiden sellsword. The great Epee requires 15 strength and 16 dex. Our next honorable mention is the Twinblade. This weapon is just really cool, so I decided to include it on the list. I found other weapons to be more effective against opponents with shields, but that doesn't mean it's a bad weapon, and I still plan on doing a playthrough with Twinblades just because they're a ton of fun. The Twinblade can be found in the Dragonburnt ruins on the south side of Lake Agheel. It's in the basement of a building which you need to jump into with your horse. Be careful if you're in the basement with all the rats. That chest is not the correct one. Open it at your own risk, and no, I won't elaborate. The Twinblade requires 10 strength and 18 dex. Alright, that concludes my list for the best melee weapons you can get at the beginning of the game. There are a ton of other weapons, and like I said earlier, all of them are absolutely viable. Play how you want, don't chase the meta unless you want to, just have fun and enjoy the game.